What about the Sydney Swans? I think they did enough, didn't they, to show that they're going to be up there as well? I mean, they're top four. I don't think there'd be too many people that would discount them for top four, would they?
Brandy, would you say the only thing they potentially lack? I thought McCartan early was very shaky. Rampy can be undersized. So is that the only thing they potentially lack is their defence?
I think so at the moment. So you've got the forward half of the ground, which is working now, and you've got Chad Warner rolling through there. The midfielders off the charts, as we know. Angus Sheldrick went in there and did his job. We know Brodie Grundy's going to be a competitor all year. McInerney comes in and kicks three, so they're not wanting for anything. They started a bit shaky the other night. I thought Carlton were all over them, but in terms of quarters of football, to slam on then 12 goals and do what they did, it was quite scary. And Dean Cox will be looking at that going, I tell you what, this is a powerful outfit that I have at my disposal. That man there who just kicked the ball across his body, Roberts, he's going to be a star. You like him, Lordo. But the Blues just had nothing. They had nothing to answer for, and it was almost witches' hats in this third quarter, which wasn't a good look after they were so good early, Carlton, with their ball movement.
Yeah, you put the teams side by side and obviously it's disappointing the way Carlton lost that game of football, but the gulf in talent on the two lists is just huge. Absolutely massive. So there's not too many, I don't think, Carlton players would get games in this Sydney Swans side. I think it was a top four team against a potential bottom four to bottom six team on that Thursday night football.
You think potentially Carlton's a bottom four team?
Bottom 4 to 6 Carlton this year with what they've got, in my opinion, yeah.
OK, so that only adds to the narrative about Michael Voss at the moment. And, Damo, I can't recall a coach heading into round two, effectively, right? Round one, under more pressure than what Michael Voss is at the moment.
Yeah, and the other backdrop to that, TJ, too, is what happened in this very corresponding match last year where Richmond came from 40-plus points down to beat them in what was the opening round traditionally. So, yeah, look, he's contracted for the year. Graham Wright as Chief Executive Officer, Chris Davies as footy boss, Michael Voss. They're in on the plan, TJ. But I think you're right. The fact that he's only game 2 of 23 for the year, I can't recall a coach being under as much pressure in that stage of a season. And you could argue that Carlton supporters are probably, certainly in recent history, the most impatient in football. Yeah, and they've had reason to be, haven't they, for the best part of 20-plus years now. And
the Swans did him no favours.
No, and Carlton have Richmond, Melbourne and North Melbourne the next 3 weeks. So it's a big 3 weeks where they could potentially be... They should aim to be 3-1 on that if they're good enough to. Just on the Swans, one to watch out for. So they kicked a lot last year, so they didn't handball too much. So the big change you're going to see with the Sydney Swans is introducing handball. So they all just want to kick. They're going to look to break the lines with more dynamic handball. So this next one that you'll see is, in the past, they'd go, I'm going to kick again. But then it brings in these guys, 2 players are ready for that. Just that one extra handball takes these 2 Carlton players out of it. So something to watch with the Sydney Swans is they're going to introduce dynamic handball to match that and then get over the top a different way. So just thought it was a real feature of their game the other night, these slick, fast handballs, which is going to, I think, encourage the runners of Sydney Swans to, just keep running and breaking the lines, which Carlton couldn't cope with.
Maury, do you reckon Carlton played on emotion?
Well, Carlton are I think the most emotional footy club I've seen in recent history. I mean, and that's both their fans and inside the 4 walls too. I think they build every game up to be a must-win game, and I saw the same at the back end of last year. It's like, we must win this game. For round 1, we've got to win. And it's like they're trying to race... it's like an F1 trying to race at DRS for an entire race, or for the entire season. Like, you're just going to show up with cracks. And, I mean, even Wiedering mentioned it after the game. They probably got too heated and too emotional, and I think we've got a grab here that we'll just quickly listen to.
Did the emotions get the better of some of your teammates?
No doubt. I think some free kicks were paid, some goals were kicked. In the end, the result was the result. But, we're going to be disciplined. We're going to play in pretty heated environments against some quality opposition. And, if you let your emotions get the better of you, it's not a good thing.
So you can play with emotion for small periods of the game, but you can't sustain it. And what we saw in that first half was Carlton's pressure was elite. They were at them. Sydney couldn't handle it. It showcased in fumbles. And then this started happening. Sydney started to get under the skin of Carlton, and then the gaps opened up afterwards. That run and carry, Lordo, they broke those lines. But I think that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this as a panel, but Vossi needs to have a really normal week this week. It can't be we've got to respond to that third quarter and fourth quarter.
But they do.
Yeah, of course they do. But if you keep building every game up, we've got to respond. Your cortisol levels are up here. You've just got to even out. The best teams like Geelong and Brisbane just play at a really consistent level because they know they've got to sustain it for the whole year. So I'd love to see Vossi come in tomorrow and just go, lads, we played some okay footy. We got obviously shown up massively by a really good outfit, but keep it really level and balanced and just come into this game with a bit more normal level.
Couldn't agree more.
Alrighty, but he will be peppered with all those obvious questions when he has his media conference later in the week.
But they react to, like, media personalities going, you've got to make it uncomfortable for Curnow. And it's like, well, you've got to make it uncomfortable for Sydney, not just Curnow. So don't just make one person the focus, make the whole game.
But he has been pretty good like that, Vossi, I think. I don't think Vossi gets too emotional about anything. I think, I agree with you, the club has been like that, the supporters, but I think Vossi is pretty good at keeping things pretty level.
That's good to hear. That's what they need.